I think we can start. Hello, hello. Again, welcome everyone to the Innovation Snack hosted by the Venturi. We are happy that you are joining us today, having you on board. Today, we'll be looking at 10 tricks how to kickstart your innovation journey. My name is Miki and I'll be your host today. Let me introduce, first of all, our wonderful speaker, Delia Wieser, who is a startup founder, author, and innovation expert, who will be walking you through the 10 tricks, how to execute on innovation and how to make innovation happen. Who is also here with us today is Elizabeth, who is helping us to make this webinar engaging, interactive, and most importantly, fun.
Hi, everyone.
Delia, you want to say a quick hello? We still have you?
Yeah, hello, everyone. I have an unstable internet, luckily, for this session, so I guess you already introduced me and I didn't hear. So hi, everyone.
I did indeed. All right. So before we start, a couple of housekeeping rules. If you could go to the next slide, Delia. Yes, so this session will be recorded. At the end of the presentation, there will be a Q&A session where we answer all of your questions. So please interact with us during the webinar. If you have a question, place it in the chat and then we'll answer it at the end of the presentation. If you have a burning question, however, that needs immediate attention, raise your hand and we'll answer it as well. We've also prepared a little bit of a quiz fun. So midway through the session, please pay attention when is the time for you to interact with us. A few words about the Venturi. The Venturi is an innovation agency that helps innovators from both startup and corporate communities on their innovation journey from an idea to a global impact, with particular focus on execution in areas of growth marketing, innovation management, and data and software engineering. Of course, all of these amazing things would not be possible without the team behind. So this is us, young, motivated individuals that represent the epic values that we stand for. But last thing I want to mention here, before we crack on with the presentation, is that after the webinar, we have something for you to take away. We'll be sending an innovation toolkit your way after the webinar. Delia will be speaking about various ways how to execute on your innovation ideas, and this toolkit, we made it easy for you, ready to use right after to crack on with the innovation within your organization. And in addition to that, there is a chance to win a personalized trend report. Delia will be asking a question at the end of her presentation, and the lucky winner will be contacted and will receive a personalized trend mapping. All right, I think that's it. Are we ready, Delia? It's all yours.
Very ready. So hello, everyone, once again from my side. And before we deep dive into those 10 tricks, let's do a quick warm up to get ourselves into the innovation mindset. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 Kickstarter projects, and I want to know from you which one you think is the most funded one. First one is the travel jacket. It has over 25 features and pockets. It has a built-in neck pillow, an eye mask, gloves, earphone holders, and so on. So everything you could need when you travel and you're somewhere. The second one is a card game. And as the founders describe it, this is for people who are into kittens and explosions and laser beams and sometimes goats. That's the card game. And the third one is a sticker that you can put over your inbuilt camera on any device you have to protect your privacy. So which one do you think is the most funded Kickstarter project from these 3? I marked them with a number, and now Lisa will open up a poll and you just have to vote for the one you think is the most funded one. So let's see. People are voting. 23 out of 35. 29, 30, a few more. Okay, I think now we can.
Yeah, 34.
Oh.
So I'm going to close the poll.
Yeah. So the results are exploding kittens. So 62% thought the exploding kittens are the winner. The world then, number 2 is privacy by design. So the sticker, and number 3, the last one, the travel jacket. Okay, so now let's look at the results. And the most funded project is, drum roll, the travel jacket. So the one that everyone thought was the least appealing one is actually the winner. They funded almost $10 million actually got to bring this project to life. So the examples that I presented are actually presented in the order of how much money they got. The first one is the travel jacket, then the kitten, where that was very close. It was around 8 million. And then the third one, only around $25,000. So what happened here is that what we did through this little exercise, we made an assumption about what most people would find interesting and buy. But we were wrong. We were very wrong, right? And believe it or not, that's also what organizations do way too often. And when they lack a formal innovation process, project approvals tend to be based on who has the best presentation, who has the most beautiful slides, or who lobbies the hardest, or whose opinions can be the loudest. But for innovation to actually contribute to a company, it really needs to be designed as a process from start to deployment. And I know there's no one size fits all approach, and it will largely depend on your organization and on the team. But we've gathered today 10 tips and tricks to help you lay the foundation of your innovation work, which going further is also hopefully going to be useful and essential for a sustainable innovation journey. And each of these 10 tricks is structured in the same way. I'll first frame the context, and then I'll give you a hands-on advice, whether that's a tool or book or actually just some thoughts from our side. So the first one, check your innovation culture readiness. We all know innovation sounds great and many big corporations want to have it. And it happened to us in the past that we deep dive into an innovation process with a company thinking the organization will, come along and change their mindset and we'll be able to support them on the way. But turns out this didn't happen, and it doesn't work like that. We actually had to stop the process halfway through, which was very demotivating. So the learning here is that starting an innovation project and calling it like that in the organization will not make your organization more innovative. So what do you need to do, or one way to do this? You need to do the work before. That's the main message, to assess your level of readiness to nurture innovation and really build the right internal structures and the right environment before you deep dive into such a project. And one way to do this is to fill in this canvas from Strategizer. It's really easy. You see here, you give yourself points on 3 levels. So first of all, you have to assess your leadership support. This is where you assess strategic alignment, your business portfolio, and also resource allocation. Then the second level is organizational design. This is where you focus on team empowerment and access to resources. And the third one is innovation practice, which is all about the skills or also the tools that you're using currently in your company. So before deep diving into an innovation process, make sure that you're first assessing your innovation culture readiness. Now, the second one is setting up the team right. And having the A team is more important than a good idea. But what makes a good team, right? Well, beyond a safe and open environment for experimentation, innovation projects should also be run by cross-functional teams to have that diversity of ideas and skill sets. And just like any venture capitalist would take a look at the project team before making any investment decision, so should the board or the committee that decides on funding ideas in a big corporation. And this is what we do here at the venture with Elevate as well. This is our in-house accelerator. And honestly, for us, the number one criteria to decide whether we want to invest in a startup is the team. If we see that they are engaged, committed, and they work well together, then it all counts much more than the actual idea. So how do you take care that your innovation team is doing well, it's aligned, and working well together? Well, one way to do it is to use the team canvas. This is also what we use at the venture in our team. It's a great tool to align on your goals, your values, to define your roles and your skills, and also to set new rules and activities. This is something we run once a year, and we did it recently. And it looked like this for us. So in terms of values, we have trust, honesty, kindness and support, and diversity of thought. In terms of roles and skills, we had, of course, in our team, innovation manager, circle lead, but also more informal roles like person to rant to or a good listener, which are also very, very important in a team. In terms of goals, we wanted to inspire each other more, further develop our leadership skills and grow together as a team. So just to take one point from here, grow together as a team and inspire each other more, we actually decided to have our team dinners once a month, very informal, where we just hang out together. And as a purpose, we mentioned that we want to support organizations to create products and services that people care about. So this is how, a little snapshot of how our team canvas looked like. Great tool. Number 3, look at consumer trends. This is also the one that is dearest to me because that's where I spent my past 10 years of my professional activity, just working with consumer trends. And this is a definition of a consumer trend, quite a long one. Let's see, it's a new manifestation among people in their behavior, in their attitude, or in their expectation of a fundamental human need, want, or desire. I know it's a long sentence, so I will unpack it for you, don't worry. So what this sentence says is that on the one hand, we have change, technological, societal, economical change. There's nothing we can do to stop this. But on the other hand, we're still the same old humans with the same old human basic needs. And these basic needs don't change as fast or as fundamental. So even though there are all sorts of new innovations, technologies, business models, services that are launched on the market every second, though they don't change us fundamentally, they just address our needs in new and special ways. And that's why we love them so much. So what changes? Well, we believe that our expectations as consumers change, and there's a constant gap between what people want and what is currently available. And just to give you a super simple example, I picked the Impossible Cheeseburger. Has been launched a few years back. It looks like a burger, bleeds like a burger, but it's entirely made of plants. Fast forward, you can have it at McDonald's today as well. And the idea with this burger is that when it was first launched, it catered to a new expectation. The one that we want to still indulge ourselves into the pleasure of having a good burger, but we also don't want to feel guilty about the impact, the negative impact that we have on the environment, which consuming meat is associated with these days. So this expectation of guilt-free consumption was then just starting to emerge. And if you think about it, this has been kind of propagated into other industries as well. So you have it in the t-shirts you buy, you have it in the way you travel, and so on and so forth. So we have, as consumer, this expectation that everything should come guilt-free. So if you see that an expectation that is present in more industries, then you spotted a pattern, and that's what you can call a consumer trend. And if you want to know more about this, you can have a look at this book. Trend-Driven Innovation is a book I co-wrote together with my colleagues at Trend Watching. But if you don't have time to read the book, no worries. Here is the Venn diagram that says it all. You see here the elements are what I've talked about: basic needs, innovations, and drivers of change. So what this Venn diagram says is that when you're innovating, if what you're thinking about is the innovations, so those new technologies and businesses that are being launched on the market, and take into account the context, so the drivers of change, but you're not thinking about basic human needs, then you're going to create novelties. So these are things that are attractive for a short period of time, and then people won't use it anymore because it doesn't, they don't need it. On the other hand, if all you're thinking about is basic human needs and innovations, you're just going to create more of the same because you're not going to take into account the context and the change that is happening out there. So what you want to do is literally hit the sweet spot at the intersection of these three elements to target those new expectations. Number 4 is running discovery interviews, and customer interviews are the perfect way to get closer to your target group, to your consumer. You can really gain a lot of insight into their perspective, their pain points, how they buy things and why. And the best interviews also help you narrow down your target market before going into exploring your idea further. And to give you an example, it's a story I've been told by one of my colleagues. She was talking about some founders that were in touch with finance guys who were spending hours each day sending emails back and forth with their spreadsheet. And the finance guys were asking for a better messaging tool so they could save some time. And then these founders asked, "Why do you bother?" And they said, the finance guys, "So we can be certain that we're all working off on the latest version." So the solution ended up being less like that requested messaging tool and more like Dropbox today, and we're all using it. So a simple question like that, why do you bother, can point you towards a real motivation, and it gives you the why. But talking to customers might sound easier than it is. It's also very easy to screw up because humans are naturally nice and don't want to hurt your feelings. So that's why most of the times we'll lie to you. And this is where the mom test comes in, a book that you can read that will show you how these conversations should be conducted, what can go wrong, and how you can do better in the way you're posing your questions. Number 5, we're almost halfway through, is checking your past. And contrary to what you would expect when it comes to looking into the future and innovating, it is actually equally important to look into the past. The present and also the immediate future is so exciting that it's very hard to look into the past. This historical amnesia is definitely understandable, but we can definitely benefit from understanding that what comes next, and especially in a digital world, demands a deeper engagement with history, with these basic human needs, and almost also with biological and environmental past. And if you look into the past, generally, it also helps you understand the evolution of societal movements. And when you do that, you're able to understand consumers better today. You're also going to be able to spot disruptions because you're going to have a good overview, and you will also understand maybe your success story better in your organization and also the types of innovations you came up with. And as an organization, you can aim to create your innovation family tree. And one way to do this is to run employee interviews and ask them questions like, which innovations were most successful, which were less successful, which were there also flops and mistakes, and also why were there no innovations in some years if you see a gap. And this way you can create a map of your past innovation activities. And one additional resource to help you do that is a book called 10 Types of Innovation, which will definitely support you in clustering the type of innovation activities you had in the past and how you can talk about them and understand them better. Hey, we're halfway through. Whew. And I'd say let's take a quick break. No, we're not going anywhere. We're just doing a quiz. So I will ask Lisa to moderate this again. And let's see.
Of course. So just like there's the halftime show in the Super Bowl, we have a halftime quiz in our webinar. It's a fun little quiz that we prepared for you. It is a guessing game. So we will ask you to guess the right answer by using the reactions that we all have at the bottom of our Zoom, where the smiley faces. We will show you what means what for which voting. So let's get into it. My first question to you is, which of these frontier technologies has the most registered patents? And here I'm talking between the time periods of 1996 to 2018. So the options are clapping for artificial intelligence, the thumbs up for IoT, or the heart for robotics. So you can start voting. Okay, there's some hearts and some thumbs up. Okay, a few claps. I think most people voted for the hearts for robotics. And the right answer here is actually artificial intelligence. So it must have been surprising to most of you, but there have been a total of 116,600 registered patents in the time frame. So pretty crazy, it's quite a lot. But robotics would be second place with almost 60,000 and IoT third with 22,000. Good job. Next one would be, which country in Europe, so not only you, but all of Europe geographically, scored the highest readiness index for 2021. So the readiness index is an index that shows the readiness towards use, adoption, and adaptation of frontier technologies, for example, as the ones that I mentioned in the previous question. So the options are clapping for Germany, the thumbs up for Switzerland, or the heart for Sweden. What do we say? Okay, I see hearts, someone's laughing. Hearts, mostly hearts. Okay, a lot of Sweden lovers, a few claps, a couple of thumbs up. Okay, so most people are in between Germany and Sweden. Sorry to disappoint you, but the winner here is actually Switzerland. Switzerland here is globally the second in the ranking after the USA. The second in Europe would be UK, afterwards Sweden, and Germany would be only somewhere sixth. So it's a very interesting statistic. Okay, our last question to you is here now. Which company has invested the most in R&D in 2018? So that's the data that we have, 2018. Who spent the most on R&D? The options are clapping for Samsung, thumbs up for Volkswagen, or the heart for Facebook. What do you say? I see hearts, clapping, a few thumbs up, more thumbs up. Okay, I feel like it's pretty mixed here. Okay, but quite a few thumbs up. Okay, and the correct answer here is in 2018, Samsung actually globally spent the most money on R&D, which was almost 15 billion US dollars, which is pretty crazy. Volkswagen came third with 14.5 billion. In between was Alphabet. And Facebook, just FYI, was around number 15 with only 7.2 billion US dollars. Okay, well, good job, everyone. This was really fun. I hope you also had fun. And we can continue with number 6, Delia, no?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. So we're at number 6, map your customer journey. This is really a great way to break down the experience your customers have with your brand. And most of you might have done this already. Yeah? This customer journey mapping is really a process of visualizing how a customer interacts with a business by mapping each step, each action to achieve a certain goal. So you map the actions, then the touch points, then what do customers think in that moment, what they feel, who owns that, so who they interact with, whether it's a channel or real people, and also what are the opportunities for each of those moments. And a few years ago, because of my passion for consumer trends, I decided to take this customer journey mapping canvas and kind of tweak it and added consumer trends to it. So in the first step, you identify and then evaluate your touch points, and I added to it a basic needs section. And in the second part, you innovate on every touch point and you match each of those touch points with a trend and an innovation example, and then ideate in a very, very detailed way. And I also have an example to show you how it works. And this is also what's going to be part of the prize for today. If you answer the question at the very end of the webinar, you can enter the chance to win, me mapping your customer journey with trends. But this is how it works. Back to the tool. So let's say that we have a cafe, the Ventures Cafe, and we picked a persona. His name is John. He's an entrepreneur who has a business in the retail sector. And I won't go through all the touch points because we don't have time today, but I'm just going to focus on one. So he's at the cafe and he's ordering, placing the order at the counter. He always takes his favorite, a flat white, and he interacts with the waiter and he's feeling quite neutral at this point. The basic need that he has during that moment is actually relevance, because he wants to go there and buy something that he really needs. And mapping this touch point with a trend and an innovation example might look like this. So I picked, in this case, sentient spaces is something that is about, it's a trend that is about consumers expecting physical spaces to almost recognize and react to them as individuals. So it's about, interactive spaces and interactive environment. And the example I picked is actually from McDonald's from the US, who was offering customers menus that were specifically tailored to factors like weather, time of the day, and also what items were popular. So they were really taking into account the environment when recommending things to them. In terms of the expectation that I extracted from this example, it's this idea that I, as a consumer, want brands to help me discover new things that are really relevant for me, right? I want brands to know me better and recommend things that are good for me. So that brings me to our light bulb moment. For the Ventures Cafe, we decided to sync our menu with John's schedule to offer personalized drinks. So if we see that he has a super busy schedule and he's maybe in the middle of the day, maybe we want to offer him a special type of coffee. But if he's right at the beginning of the day and we know that it's good to start the day with some vitamins, then we might offer him a vitamin drink. We didn't open any cafe yet. This is all fictive, but who knows, maybe we will after this webinar. Number 7, be systematic when evaluating your ideas. So as I was saying at the beginning, there are so many opportunities out there. If you don't have a structured process in place, it will be really difficult to choose what to innovate on. And successful corporations have a so-called innovation pipeline. This is, yes, a systematic approach to generating a steady flow of ideas at a time when change is really accelerating. So let's say you have a bunch of ideas in your innovation pipeline, which you've added via trend research, customer interviews, looking into the past, mapping your customer journey. But you are having troubles narrowing down, right? Like, what should you jump on next? One relatively new tool we are using at the Venturi is the market opportunity attractiveness from a book called Where to Play. It really looks at the potential of your idea first, so at the compelling reason to buy, whether it addresses an unmet need, if it's better than a current solution. It looks at the market volume and also at the economic viability, margins, customer stickiness, customers' ability to pay. And then in a second stage, it looks at the challenges that might come when it comes to implementing the idea. So what are the implementation obstacles, including funding challenges, sales and distribution difficulties. It forces you to look at the time to revenue. So how long will it take to make money with it? And also other external risks. So it's a great conversational tool you can use in your team to really decide on what to go for in a systematic way. The last three tricks that I want to share with you are more about mindsets. So the first one is explore beyond your industry. And this brings me back to the burger picture and to these emerging expectations. What is really interesting about them is that they will be set outside your industry. Why is this happening? Well, it's because once a certain level of quality and service is reached in one industry, people will expect exactly the same thing from yours. That's why we say that we live in an expectation economy where, no matter your industry, we're all competing against Emirates if it comes to customer service, Apple for design, and so on and so on. And just the other day, we had again a workshop with a banking institution here in Austria, and we were asked, why aren't we showing enough banking examples? So the answer to that is, I mean, think about it. If you're having your online banking interface, you're probably not going to compare it with another online banking interface from another bank, but you're actually going to compare it to the best interface that you have ever experienced or worked with. And if that's Spotify, because you love how the Discovery Weekly playlist comes to you every week, then that's also what you're going to expect from any interfaces out there. So really important to look outside your industry. And one interesting way to do that is also to take a trend safari. Well, what is this? It's actually a collection of innovative retail spaces, business models and their entrepreneurs, installations and so on from a specific city that inspires you on a certain topic. So one of the latest ones I ran, for example, was for a luxury hotel in London, where we looked at food innovation. So all those spaces and entrepreneurs and places to visit were chosen based on their food innovation strategy that we discussed before. So this is also something that we can provide you with a route through a cool city to inspire you and your team. It's also a great team event. And yes, while listening to trends in a meeting or in a webinar, in this case, it's quite exciting, but there's nothing like really going out there and being in touch with these people and asking questions and getting insights. So a really nice technique to do that. Number 9 is break free from learned carelessness. Very often we know established companies rely way too much on the past. So while it's good to look into the past to inform your strategy for the future, it's not good to rely on how things worked out in the past too much and forget to adapt the so-called speed of innovation. And this is what learned carelessness is. You all remember, you know, the classical examples that you hear all the time in this presentation, the Kodaks, the Nokias, but there are many more. You know, Xerox was actually the first one to invent the PC, and their product was way ahead of its time, but the management thought going digital would be too expensive at that time, so never bothered to exploit the opportunity. And to put things into perspective, these are here all the projects that Google killed in the past 10 years. Ooh, yeah, quite a lot. So they're so successful, not because they have only great ideas, but because they're also experimenting and daring with what they do. And one way to look into working with this mindset is to read about the innovator's dilemma. It's also a book that you can buy. And this basically discusses a situation in which there are established companies in a specific market who are investing in sustainable innovations. So these are incremental improvements to an existing product. And then they are faced with a new entrant to the market that introduces a disruptive innovation. And what happens in this space in between? That's the dilemma zone. So yeah, have a look. Get the book if you didn't read it already, and find out how to overcome this learned carelessness. Last but not least, measure impact. Don't launch anything that negatively impacts society and the world around you. And invented by IDEO, you all know this, the 3 criteria that are a support to check whether to go about implementing your idea or not. And desirability is about people, yeah? Does anyone care about your new idea? Viability is, can you make money with it? And feasibility is about whether you can build it. And yes, you have to hit all of them at the same time, because otherwise you'll find yourself just walking from one door to the other, wasting resources and time. But it's now high time to redesign these criteria and add another circle to it: integrity and impact. It's really important because on a broader level, you have to think about how does your innovation impact society and the planet. With these massive ecological challenges that we're facing, this criteria can no longer be overlooked and should be really at the heart of your innovation thinking. Hey, you've made it. Thanks for sticking to it until the very end. I know these were a lot of points, quite fast. To circle back to what I was saying at the beginning about an innovation process, I was talking that it's so important that organizations have one. We have as well one at the Venture. This is how it looks like. So before we deep dive into any client project, we first evaluate where the client is on this innovation journey that we created. So in Explore, for example, is where you identify problems and scan for opportunities, and you come up with initial ideas. In Envision, you then start to think about how does that idea work? What's the value proposition? What's the business model behind it? And you identify different hypotheses that you then, in the validate stage, test and tweak and come back until you're really ready, and you can go into scale where you grow your business and operationalize everything. So yeah, now the time has come, and here is your chance to win a personalized customer journey, a customer journey that is mapped with trends. And all you have to do to enter the chance to win it is to answer this question. So this is also a conversation starter for us here in the virtual room. what is essential for you when you start innovating? What do you think is that, maybe one thing that you definitely need to do before you implement an idea? And I'll invite you to either post your answers in the chat, but also we're super happy to hear you, because I've talked enough, I think. We're super happy to hear you. Then please unmute yourself and just share your thoughts with us. We're going to give you a minute to think about it, or if someone is already ready.
Yeah, me. I think it's one of the first things you said, and actually in the beginning, is that most of the time the idea who has the best presentation gets realized.
Yeah.
And I never thought about that, but I think that's the point why a process is so important. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else wants to share a thought here, comment?
Thank you, Delia. This was amazing. So many insightful tips and excellent examples that you brought up. I just want to remind everyone, place your questions in the chats or talk to us directly. In terms of the little winning opportunity for you guys, we'll pick the lucky winner and we'll get in touch with you after the webinar. So please feel free to think about it if you need more time. Now is your chance. Any questions you might have?
Just because this was asked a couple of times, if we will send the presentation and the list of all these books and tools that Delia recommended. Yes, you will all get these tools bundled up together with the slides.
Thank you, yes.
Perhaps one question about the innovation culture readiness. What if the result is you are not ready?
Well, I think you can go to the right person in the corporation with that sheet of paper and basically derive different activities that can help you reach it. So it will show you where you need to start the work.
But I think changing a culture is very time consuming, I would say. Let's say a few years in bigger companies. So often that is not the choice to wait until that happens to start innovating. So what do you do then?
Of course, changing a culture is one of the most difficult things to do in a corporation. I think taking the risk to just jump into the project without having that also increases the chances to fail in terms of the actual idea or in terms of the team. As I said, from our experience, actually the company realized that they are not ready for it. And they decided to wait for one more year and work on it and pick up the project afterwards. So they really derived activities, whether that's, internal education offerings, a combination of activities that you can start with at least. I don't know if any of my colleagues have any other suggestions there. But that would be, I think, it is a long-term process, but you kind of have to do it. Otherwise, the results of the innovation projects will not be as qualitative as they could.
One quick thought that I want to add maybe is that, there are different vehicles for innovation, right? And some rely more on internal structures and buy-in, for example, than others. So you can also see if there's a vehicle that works better for this type of corporation in an early stage, and then simultaneously trying to transform the culture. yeah, because for example, entrepreneurship is very reliant on buy-in structures, and then there are other methods that you can also pick from, for example.
Thank you, Alex, for adding your feedback. We have a question from Annie for Delia. How to incentivize innovative people within a corporation, the people that join the innovation activities and the projects besides their daily job tasks? Do you have an advice?
I think it's a very important point, because if people are not incentivized, then they're not going to be able to find the time on top of their daily work or the actual motivation to do it. Just one thought from my side, and then I'll invite Alex again to talk about this maybe as well, is that before diving into an innovation project, then the teams are assigned and approved a certain percentage of their time that is invested into that project from the very beginning. So it all needs to be very clear that, for example, 30% of your time you're using on this project, and the team and the organization then needs to adapt to that change. And in this way, you are then, invested in it. Alex, what do you think?
I think a good example here is also our accelerator Elevate. So we, as maybe some of you know, is that we also had entrepreneurship teams running in our accelerator. And a lot of people that join entrepreneurship programs, for example, are very intrinsically motivated to also learn new things, to get time to experiment also for themselves. And within the context of this accelerator, for example, the people really could immerse in the topic of innovation and immerse in their tasks. And I think for most people, it's not so much the title entrepreneur or the visibility maybe in front of the board, but rather that they get the time to focus on something new, to focus on something very exciting. But ideally, of course, there are other upsides, also some, like they can somehow benefit in another way, also maybe financially or as a part of the endeavor. But I really think that the thing that strikes the most is when you can get their motivation and when you give them what they actually want, and it's enough freedom and learning opportunities. I think Johannes' hand is up for a long time now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you first of all for the presentation. That was very interesting. And I would have two questions. I mean, the first one is, so I guess most of innovations are actually created within organizations and then exploited outside the organization in the market. But when would you say does innovating outside of organizational boundaries make sense?
With innovating outside the boundaries, do you mean launching an idea in a totally new industry than where the organization is?
Yeah, exactly. For instance, in a new venture that doesn't operate within the organization.
Maybe I can also add something here, because that's something that I very recently thought about. I think when you think about an opportunity in a very early stage or have a topic that you want to work on, it becomes pretty obvious that this thing that I'm working on is it's necessary to have it within the organization, maybe because it's very incremental or very at the core of the business, and I need a lot of alignment with internal stakeholders. Or if that's something that can function like as a separate brand, maybe, or you're not so reliant on internal resources, on communication. And that's how we basically decide what to do with it. So for example, if we do venture building with some of our clients, then it's something that can be clearly separated. We don't need, we're not reliant or not so much reliant on their internal resources. I think that's the main differentiator. Because entrepreneurs, for example, I would also just go for entrepreneurship if it's really important that you need entrepreneurs. Otherwise, of course, this is something that we can also do without them or partially with them, if that makes sense. What's your opinion, actually, Johannes?
Yeah, I mean, like, I would say I agree with you. I mean, like, outside of organizational boundaries probably would sort of make sense if you do see, for instance, a strategic or a financial reason to build a new venture in a new market, because like you spot a huge opportunity. And maybe also if you sort of have to innovate faster than internally, because then if you do it outside of organizational boundaries, you're not probably not that process driven, right? So you can probably iterate faster and in any way move faster in the market.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think that's the thing, like when you're reliant on the internal structures and dependent on internal people, then it naturally takes a little bit longer, but sometimes it's just necessary. When you have the option to do it outside because you're not so reliant, then of course you're very, very much faster. Yeah, it's true.
Agreed. Can I ask another question? Do you, I mean, like, I feel like there is also a lot of talking about competition and collaboration and stuff like that. Do you sort of have an answer when multi-firm innovation collaboration makes sense? Let's say, for instance, that 2 or 3 firms, either in the same industry or operating in distinct industries, do collaborate on creating a new venture, for instance?
I can again answer if you.
Yeah, Alex,
that's
it's
fine
your
with Delia.
field.
So I think the thing that I want to mention before is that if you engage as a corporate with another corporate, you have to be very careful, because they're like, everyone has their agenda, their incentives, and what we always do first is try to get a proper alignment, like within the company, but also with the other companies, to see if they want to reach the same things, if they have the same incentives, what could be contradicting in general. And this, I think, has a lot to do with trends as well. You can see that there are certain industries that naturally fit together. For example, I know about a lot of collaborations between public transportation companies and mobile, how do you say it in English? Like internet companies, like A1, for example, Telekom, so that they cooperate to provide better customer value in whatever sense. For example, that, let's just say, internet on trains is really bad because they're going so fast. So why not collaborate to create value? And I think if this is the case, if you can spot an opportunity and say we could work together, and if you can really get all the pitfalls out of the way, then this makes a lot of sense. But as I said, you have to be really careful, because there are a lot of interests at play that makes it very complicated.
Cool.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Johannes. I hope that we have answered your questions. Same goes for Annie. It looks like we still have time to answer the last question from Valentin. And he is interested in how would we approach the customer journey mapping for API products that are typically heavy B2B focused.
Yeah, so customer journey, of course, depending on what you do, looks differently, but actually no matter the type of industry, if it's B2B or B2C, you're still dealing with people. So there wouldn't be any difference in how we would go about it, and each customer journey would look different because of the touch points and the steps that you need to do to achieve your goal. I hope I answered or understood the question right.
Yes, we have the confirmation from Valentin. Thanks, guys, also for submitting your answers. We'll review these amazing answers that you've provided. A lot of great stuff in there as well. In case there are no other questions, we can wrap up the session. Let me know, raise your hand if there's anything else we can answer for you today. Other than that, I think staying on the topic of innovation, I'd like to share another event with you guys. If you're still hungry for innovation, there's a little bit more time for this one still, but we'll be facilitating an event in June as part of the Vienna Up initiative. It's called The Adventurer's Guide to Innovation, and we'd like you to join us. By participating in this webinar, you'll receive a special promo code for a discounted price. And so hopefully you can join us for an exciting day full of workshops, keynotes, and other amazing networking opportunities on June 2nd at the We Accelerate. Yes, thanks for everyone for joining us today. It was amazing to have you on board, and get in touch with us. Follow us on social for updates and upcoming events, and hope you have a great afternoon. Thanks, Delia. Special thanks to Alex and Elizabeth and everyone who supported us today.
Thank you,
Thank you, Delia. It was very insightful.
Thanks, guys. Till next time. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.